Zilikuwa na rongo
Bismillah.
kalinchi.
Bismillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا فعلمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Ngawe tuwaba subiza, we promised you that today, inshallah, we shall be discussing another important topic, and our guest is almost here, inshallah. Sheikh Qasim Kaira, the guest that we are going to have today, and should I say the permanent guest, he will he will have to say something about that. Last week, alhamdulillah, we discussed some very important topic, which was Muslims and journalism, and you all realized how important it was, and he gave us all these important principles and guidelines Muslim journalists should be following. Now, this week, again, there is a connection between today's topic and last week's topic, because today we are talking about Muslims and politics, which is quite something interesting, because we do not hear this topic being talked about. I believe our guest can agree with me. Sheikh Qasim Kaila is joining us from the BBC UK. He is a sheikh and is a 30-year-old journalist, like 30 years old in journalism. Not his age. People might think I'm older than you. Sheikh Qasim, you're muted. Please, I ask you to unmute.
All right, sorry, I didn't notice that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
I will invite you to say salam and maybe make our audience feel and understand that you're here with us.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and it's very good to be here on Soul Cocktail, where I think we'll be exploring a lot of what is happening across and around the world, but from Muslim eyes or through Muslim eyes. And I think that is quite critical. So that's a clear bias that I think we established very clearly, but it doesn't mean that we don't see other things, but it just means that we'll try to drive it towards how it affects us as a Muslim community, as a Muslim ummah. And it doesn't matter where you are. As long as you're Muslim, I think it sort of matters to you. And even if you're not Muslim, it's quite interesting because it might help to inform your own understanding of how you would cover issues, getting the sensitivities of Muslims in consideration in your coverage. So that's definitely one. It's not just a purely Muslim program. No, it is a program that can actually spread quite across, especially for one that wants to be knowledgeable about what happens. It wouldn't hurt, for example, to cover a story if you are talking about, terror attacks or whatever, and you know what Muslims believe in. It helps to inform your own reporting, for example, from a journalistic perspective. If you are a policymaker and you're going to make policies, sometimes you make policies without thinking through, probably how it would affect people, and probably that will be delved into a lot more in today's topic, inshallah. But I think it sort of lays the foundation that as a basis, yes, you can think Muslim, but beyond that, whatever we discuss can actually be consumed generally by Muslims and non-Muslims. So it's a good opportunity to be here, alhamdulillah.
Great, mashallah, jazakallah khairan, Sheikh Qasim. We chose a pretty challenging topic, okay? Because most people would say that, why is it Muslim? But alhamdulillah, you've just mentioned why it is important to clarify that point, because people think that Muslims are so sensitive. We want something to be Islamic. Everything has to be about Muslims. But I thank you for that clarification. Politics and Muslims. I wish to hear from you, Sheikh Qasim Kaira, just a brief history. How have Muslims been engaging in politics generally? And all these different, as a historian, because I understand you're good at that.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. There's no way that you can separate religion from politics. And it's not just Islam as a religion, but Islam being one of the religions. There's no way you can separate Islam from religion. I think there's that famous saying which goes, Al-Islam din wa dawla. If you're thinking about Islam being both a religion but also a state, it is a state in terms of the affairs of people. Islam is not a religion, but it is a way of life. And if you're going to talk about a way of life, The whole issue about governance, and which is politics, is about how you relate. And you look at how it starts from the smallest unit of administration, which is the family. And a Muslim family has to live in a particular way, as husband as the head of the house, wife as being the in charge of the house, the children being part of that system. How you manage and harness that particular home now reflects on to how it starts going out of the home, and then it goes into several homes which constitute a family or a clan, and then from there it goes to the administrative unit, which is your county or sub-county, and then beyond that it goes to the district. From the district it goes to the province, and from the province it goes national. So already from the family you're already running politics. If you are running your own home, that is already politics, and therefore there is no way you can distance the politics. If it is, for example, in Islam, where you are allowed to marry more than one wife, two or three or four wives, their management alone is politics, and therefore it is politics already that is starting from within that context. But when it goes to the national perspective, you find that the decisions that are made in politics, for example, where to build a road, where to construct a bridge, where to have worship places, all these things affect, and therefore it means that a Muslim has to be a part and parcel of that development process and should be center, therefore should be part of those discussions. For you to be empowered to be part of those discussions, for you to contribute in a meaningful manner, you need to be in a position of authority. The only way to get into a position of authority is through an electoral process. And therefore, you find that now, as a Muslim, it is pertinent upon you to be able to engage, to involve yourself in being a part of that process that would influence and impact on people's lives. So immediately you're seeing that now Muslims now become part of elective politics as a mechanism, as a way and means towards ensuring that service delivery, for example, is done, because you need to be in a position of authority. And the direct way to do that, the democratic way to do that, is through elections. And therefore, it should not be an accident that a Muslim finds themselves in that. When you look at leadership of Muslims, where you have an imam running a mosque, you're already carrying out pastoral duties. But beyond that, you're carrying out counseling services. You're going into people's homes and helping them to run, but you're also mobilizing those people to go and be part of Burunji Bwansi, for example. If there's a community work that has to be done on a Saturday, they have to go and clear out trenches, they have to clean up an area. The imam becomes the best person to sort of mobilize people in their mosque. If there are programs like vaccination, where people now have to go and vaccinate their children, or, for example, under a COVID pandemic like we are in, government manages to get vaccines and they have come in. As the imam, you have the authority to stand in front of those people and sort of prepare them, provide them with informed knowledge on how they can participate in that. For you to be able to do that, an imam probably shouldn't just be appointed, they should be elected. They should be thought through to see that the person has the qualifications to be able to do that. So you can see the global picture, that even from the smallest unit where you have a small mosque, already you are getting involved. There is need for people to be a part and parcel of that particular process. For anyone to imagine that a Muslim should just stay out of politics, I think it would mean that Muslims would have to live on their own planet, which would not have any governance. So leadership is part and parcel of the administration of a Muslim. And that's why you have an imam, even on a journey, leave alone in the mosque. If you're going to embark on a journey and you are three people, amongst yourselves, immediately you determine who is going to lead us, who is going to be our imam on this journey. That's leadership. You're already voting. You're already electing a person without even noticing it. So that, and getting Muslims now to understand and open up in those particular. There's a particular case that was quite interesting in the at my farm around Bombo there. There was a Muvaburaya who came and wanted to provide electricity in the area. But her house was a bit farther off from where the electricity grid was. She needed to, they came in, some people came and carried out a supervision. They realized that they needed about 50 poles to be able to get electricity to her area. But 50 poles would mean that anyone who is within that range of 50 poles would access electricity before it even gets to the woman's house. But one of the Muslim people who was locally living there, apparently two poles had to pass through his land. And he refused because he was thinking, this is a plan just to sort of steal my land. And because of that failure to understand, we lost out on electricity, and for the last 5 years there has not been electricity because the opportunity that had come failed because of a misunderstanding on that line. So sometimes you just need to be able to think in terms of that. And if this was a person that was, for example, on the local committee, local council committee, this is something that could easily have been conveyed, but you can only be part of that committee if you have been elected. So I hope I'm sort of laying the foundation for why it is absolutely necessary for Muslims to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely important. I think I need to make a confession here that in the Islamic scholarship, we've not given too much emphasis when it comes to that field specifically, which is referred to as siyasa sharia. I mean, we have developed a lot of fiqh. When you look at the fiqh books, the books of Islamic jurisprudence, you will find a lot of discussions on ibadah, regarding ibadat, acts of worship, a lot of discussions regarding the rest of mu'amalat, which is the financial transactions and the family relationships. But the siyasa sharia, or the Islamic political science, the fiqh of siyasa sharia, has not been really studied a lot. Yes, there are books like that of Ibn Taymiyyah and a few other scholars and opinions in the Sharia books, but developing it and providing concrete ideologies and philosophies that can govern states and that can do all these beautiful stuffs for the people, I don't find it anywhere. Like, we have not studied it very well, except for the few movements. And I think we should also clarify to our viewers that we're not talking about the political Islam they hear about, the Islamic movements. We are talking about the Muslim in the democratic states, okay, especially
Being
the
part of
Muslim
the
in the
democratic.
Muslim minority, because
Yeah.
Sheikh Kaira, you understand that it is totally different when it comes to the Gulf countries. That is a totally different approach. And we have countries, other Muslim countries, where they seem to be elections, like Egypt and whatever they did. But we just want to say that that is now a different case. We
Yes.
are talking about a Muslim in a minority. I mean, Muslim minority countries where there is that electoral process, democratic electoral process. Should we
Yes.
participate? Should we not participate? This is what Sheikh Kasim Kaida is trying to stress. And I felt touched when a Muslim stood against development. Like, people did not get electricity because of the rigidity. I hope the self-preservation wasn't about Islam, wasn't motivated by Islamic beliefs. It was
The
more of
fact
culture and maybe the political system existing. People know that these people really steal land. So I hope that the motivation behind that kind of response wasn't Islam
no,
itself,
no,
because
it wasn't. It
like
wasn't
like
definitely
Sheikh
the fact
Kasim
that it was
Kaida told
Muslim.
us,
Yeah.
yeah, like you clearly stated it, Islam is open. I mean, we live with people. This is a system, a whole complete way of life. I don't believe a Muslim who understands exactly what Islam is can stand against such um, uh, a development in an area. Sheikh Kasim Kaida, when you have traveled a lot and you have clearly met Muslim minorities in several countries, would you please mind to paint a picture? Is it the same, like, for example, in Uganda? Is it also the same, like, for example, in USA or UK or other parts of Africa? I just want you to look at the Muslims and their participation in politics, just to help us understand what is really going on a
Well,
wider scale.
thank you. Like you said in your introduction, what has happened is that a lot of our Islam, from the perspective of understanding, has taken the direction of worship only. There's been a lot of concentration on the acts of worship. So, as a Muslim, the first instance, a lot of effort has gone into ensuring that you can pray your five, prayers a day. You can, give your alms. You build a mosque. Muslims, actually, especially those who have moved into the diaspora, the first thing that any Muslim does is when you get to an area, the first thing you're looking for is where is the nearest mosque. If there is none, then one Muslim looks after another, looks for another. The next thing is they put themselves together and try to construct a mosque. But once the mosque is there, you will realize that actually, especially in Western countries, you're going to need a lot of, there is planning permission, there is building permission, planning permission for that. There is getting through the council sometimes to access buildings. In the United Kingdom, for example, we had a situation in the 2005, all the way to about 2012. The largest number of churches were converted into mosques because you have so many people who have left to worship. The churches are left for very old people. The young people have moved out. They are no longer praying. And you have to pay the bills to sustain the churches. I mean, for someone in Africa, sometimes you tell this story and people cannot understand. But the issue is people have deserted the churches. They're living a totally different life. It's an agonistic life that they're trying to live. And therefore, you find the churches are inhabited by very old people. As a result, the more they die out, you find that the churches now decimate in terms of numbers, and they cannot be sustainable because they are not getting any state funds to be able to run. They depend on the contributions from the church goers. Minus the church goers, it became very difficult. Muslims, on the other hand, coming in here with the hunger to find a place that they can call a mosque, ended up buying so many mosques, it's for so many churches and converting them into mosques. It became a national crisis that government had even to intervene now to stop the purchase of churches. Otherwise, very soon you'd find that many churches, had ended up becoming mosques. So they started putting a bit of restriction. On some buildings, you'll find, like, for example, here in London, there is on St. Anne's Road, there's a very interesting building, which was a church, and now it is a mosque. But because of the planning regulations within that area, they insisted that all the crosses, for example, the statues of Jesus and Mary that were outside cannot be removed. So you come and you see a lot of idols and you could think it is idol worship. You get inside and it's a mosque. They allow you to change whatever is inside, but you can't change what is outside. So the point I was trying to make is that a lot of emphasis has gone into people concentrating on worship, which has helped a lot to keep people's faith. But beyond that, suddenly you realize, if, for example, you had a mosque and you wanted to put a madrasa inside the mosque, it is going to require planning permission. For you to have planning permission, you have to go through the council. If on the council you have people that are all non-Muslim, who will understand even why the essence of a madrasa is in terms of people. This is what I'm talking about. So you start thinking along those lines, that very soon you realize we need to have a counselor who is on the local council, who would be on a planning committee, and therefore if our plans, for example, came to try to change use of a facility, then it becomes easy because we have representation. And that's where now suddenly you start realizing how electoral politics now starts coming in. So in the West, you see that has been the sort of the modus operandi. You go to America, it is the same story. Planning permission. In some places, there are lots of restrictions as compared or as opposed to other places. So you realize that suddenly you need that. If you come to Africa, for example, the situation is different because a mosque, there is no way, for example, you would imagine that Christians can say, we have failed to manage our church and we are selling it off. That would almost be unheard of in an African context. Yet it happens a lot here in Europe because it's real. The bills have to be paid and the bills are high. And then if you can't maintain it, you can't keep it. You come to Uganda, for example, and you see Muslims, now when you come to Africa and Uganda specifically, you will find that now the colonial systems that came into place started affecting the people's access. For example, Muslims' access to power. Muslims, for example, were limited in terms of going for education. Therefore, you could only go up to a certain level, P4, P5. That is the maximum you'd have gone. Anything going above that, you had to end up converting to Christianity. So people like Professor Yusuf Chironde, they ended up going into education and they converted from Islam to Christianity. It became a shock. Many Muslims pulled their children out of schools, worried that now their Muslims were also going to convert to Christianity, to Kafir, as it was called. It became a big issue and it became a big setback that at a time when many people were sending their children to school, the bulk that became the bulk of the civil service upon independence, we did not have anyone. The first Muslim graduate in Uganda was the late Abu Mayanja. May Allah have mercy on him.
Amin, ya Rabbi,
First person to get a degree, and then followed later on by Chirunda Chive Jinja, who has just already also just passed on. May Allah have mercy on him.
Amin.
And you realize that you see that from the time that they graduated, they have been a part of the political system. In fact, there are times they would call like Abu Mayanja Ajip. Ajip was just an acronym which said any government in power. So they would be there. But they were representative of a system, because if they are saying we are looking for a Muslim that is educated, this is the first person that you cannot miss. So for us, colonialism had a huge impact in terms of keeping Muslims behind in education. So Muslims started concentrating on business, and therefore you would find that Muslims now are better drivers because they don't drink. We are 24 hours sober, so they made better drivers. They became bachinjaji of the butchers, and actually the whole idea of the butchers was a big battle because it had to end up even in the 1900 Buganda Agreement, following the religious wars that happened in Uganda. As they were sitting down to sort of find a lasting solution out of the problem, the Muslims went and they had representation. And the only benefit Muslims had out of that was the fact that you had the first Muslims who arrived in Uganda in 1844. They went to the king's palace and the king converted. So because of the process of power, having access to power means you can have influence. So even when the first Kabaka of Buganda left Islam and even started killing Muslims, ending up people fleeing to Chijungute and so on. One of his brothers, Karema, had remained a Muslim. From him, we get Nuhu Mbogocha Abasinga, who becomes very instrumental in retaining. But all of these were important because they had got education, they had political power. Without political power, which democratically you have to be elected or you have to inherit it if it is hereditary, you cannot change things. So they were able to change things because they were in positions of power. So this is how we end up that when in these particular circumstances, for you to be able to access power, you need to have representation. In fact, this election that was just done yesterday on Thursday, the 14th of January 2021, is the one election that we've had the largest number of Muslim representation in that. And it talks a lot, it speaks a lot about the maturity of Muslims understanding and appreciating the role, of what being in elective politics means in terms of decision making. So you get people that you would not have imagined, people like Muhammadi update,
Segedin.
Mr. Update, Segiri, has had that he's managed to go through. You get other people. Muhammad Disreko is still, like in the forefront in the Kampala central MP-ship. You find that this is the first time we are getting the largest number of Muslims, either at local level in terms of councils or even at national level where you have MPs. It means that if we have the right numbers, when the president comes to make his appointments upon, like being sworn in or getting whichever president comes out as the leader out of this particular election, when the president sits down, they will be saying, we need A, B, C, D. But given that you have enough numbers, you have enough people that can actually make a case. And that is critical. Therefore, you cannot sit back. There have been lots of complaints. But you participated actively. And I think for this first time, Muslims have come out. They have given it their all, and it reflects in terms of the result. It just means then, on the table, when the cake is being shared, we can have a say. And that's what elective politics and Islam now actually means.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm going to challenge a particular group of Muslims in Uganda. Just after looking through the conversations, Sheikh Kaida,
Yeah.
I've been
Where the
seeing people
conversations, I
saying,
can't, unfortunately, I can't hear any. Are there any
no, I'm
particular?
going to try to go through. People are saying salam. Hasfa Kasuja from VSA is sending salams. Wa alaikum salam wa barakatuh. We have people from UAE tuning in. We have one of my friends in uh, Turkey right now is like this is the same issue we face in Islamic economics.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely,
there
absolutely,
is
yes.
there is no serious works that have been done in terms of states related to economic issues or financial issues. He's trying to say that generally, when you look at us, we have not been very serious, and I need to at least appreciate the fact that the Islamic economics and Islamic finance are trying their best to do this, but you
Yes,
realize that there has also been a political influence. There has been an authority,
yes,
like funding and pushing for this particular thing to take off, starting from King Faisal of
yes.
Saudi Arabia up to now. Countries are gathering, and there is a budget for that. It all
Well,
goes back.
the biggest one, Sheikh Ashraf, has come from Malaysia. Malaysia has really been like
Yeah,
the biggest in terms of pushing for this. But you
yeah,
can see that even in Uganda now, a law has already been passed on Islamic banking. But up to now, churches put themselves together. They went politically, spoke with a voice,
yeah,
and tried to stop the introduction of Islamic banking because, one, if Islamic banking was introduced in Uganda, their banks would close. They are based on interest. Islamic banking would remove interest. And this is where they thrive from. But you see that if we had a presence as well on that high table, with a vice president, for example, who is Catholic, could be easily accessed by the churches who are trying to make the protest. If you had a vice president that was Muslim, definitely you see what that would mean. Of course, a lot of haggling went ahead, and they realized that given where we are at as a country, one, we need money. Two, people need to have access to credit. Credit facilities are very difficult to access in African countries. If you're going to pay interest rates of anything from 14% to 25%, you are not making any profits. People here will be getting, like loans on 9%, between 7% and 9%. That is money that can be paid off. Of course, Islam now would remove the interest, but I mean, even with the high interest rates, it means people cannot actually carry out business. Someone comes and brings in a system. So on the financial front, yes, you can see that a bit of progress has been made, but it's because there are examples where it has worked well in countries like Malaysia, where you can now use them as a template now to be able to apply. Now we need to go on the political front, as you say, now to start come up with the manuscript that talks about, politics with Islam, not political Islam, but politics with Islam. Because political Islam, like we said last time, has its own problems emanating from, again, poor governance.
yeah. Wonderful. And actually, to maybe to also mention, it has to be mentioned, the few Muslims in the parliament of Uganda are the ones who pushed for the
Yes,
amendments of the Financial Institutions Act in Uganda. So
yes,
definitely the presence of Muslims in these positions would definitely influence policy, and
yes,
therefore making lives better for Muslims. And that is part of the maqasid al-Sharia, the higher objectives of Sharia. تيسير على المسلمين إن الله يريد بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر. Allah wants ease for you and not difficulty. There is a comment from Hasfa. I'm going to read it, then I will challenge the other particular group of individuals in our community. Hasfa is saying it is good to participate in democratic processes of voting because policies made by politicians have a direct impact on you. For instance, in the US, things like immigration policies, schools, buildings, mosques, etc., at state level are hugely impacted by politics. You're right on that, Sheikh Kaid. I don't know. That is from Hasfa. She's in Maryland, USA. I believe that was wonderful. Going
absolutely.
back to Uganda, we have seen, we are sheikhs. We are supposed to be preaching the message that uplifts people's standards, spirits, inspiring them. Do you think we have done a good job when it comes to that particular uh, part of our duty as preachers?
The answer, the answer is yes and no, but a big no before the yes. Simply because, like you said, we have not had a particular manuscript that specifically states out how a Muslim can participate into politics. We have not had that. And while within Islam, we have a lot of evidence, we have a lot of basis, a lot of it has remained. We have gone on the spiritual side of things. And whatever we've been saying now hasn't really picked out that particular aspect. And probably now that we're having this kind of conversation, it means this is going to go the limelight. It's a few imams who have taken it upon themselves to sort of paint the picture of the kind of ills, of the kind of disservice that we are getting in a lot of ways, and using that now as a microcosm to have a discussion around that. See the number of, for example, look at the prison system in Uganda. Just like, for example, if you made a comparison between blacks and whites, you go to the United States, the proportion, the percentage of blacks in the United States is actually much smaller. But you go to the prison population, our representation in prison populations is much higher in comparison to the population size. The same thing is, you'll come to a country like Uganda, you have more Muslims in prison over some of the flimsy cases that actually you cannot have. Had strong representation that would make a particular case a good case that would push. Why, for example, do you get people getting granted bail where you have had lawyers? There's a group of Muslim lawyers, and this I think I should use to thank them, who have provided pro bono services, free services to people who are in distress, Muslims who are in distress, who are in jail without having any access to any legal services, and they've provided that free of charge. If we had a system that clearly stipulates this, these are all the mechanisms that you would have in place, and therefore avoid these kind of situations where people are languishing in jail because they couldn't get a bond, a bail, and because they couldn't get a bail because they didn't have a lawyer to ask for the bail. These are things that are all sort of, it's part of that political system. Therefore, in answer to your question, as sheikhs, I think we have not done a good job. We have done it accidentally. In situations where we have done it accidentally. It was not a deliberate, progress, clear directional process that could have been, done. And now going forward, given the fact that now many people have gone into elective politics, it means that should be the next step. We should be looking at how do we provide that facility. Even within the categories of people who receive zakah, you'll find that there's a provision that we could have that would help at least to enhance and progress people, prepare them politically. But this is, again, I should say, is not the work for the sheikhs. The sheikhs can provide the religious background to that. But we have politicians who can come and train our people into how to do politics. The sheikhs would be there to provide guidance that our politics is not dirty politics, because Islam is clean and does not, and Allah is clean. He doesn't take except what is clean. When you go to politics, it is clear it is dirty politics. Can we play clean politics and show the difference? I think that was exhibited very well during the by-election in Wujiri, where Asmani,
Basari.
yes, Asmani Basari, Honorable Asmani Basari, when he won that particular ticket, coming from a party like Jema, which you would not, think had a sort of serious representation, he went out there on the credibility of his own credentials as a person. He got voted. And this is what we have to stand for. We come out and deliver. And that's the only way people are going to judge you. It doesn't matter whether you're Muslim or Christian or whatever. As long as you deliver services, people will be judging you on that. Why don't we use that opportunity then as Muslims? The non-Muslims go to the churches, they will contribute to the offertories, and that starts to create a base for them to get support. Why don't Muslims go to the mosque and use that as a basis as well? One, to reach out to the community, but the wider perspective, serve the nation. So I think that's really something that needs to be done, and it needs to be thought through. It doesn't need to be accidental. A lot of our things are sort of done haphazardly. It needs to be something that is well planned, well structured, and
Yeah.
then it can start, because that's the only way we can assess how have we succeeded, have we failed, what can we add in, where have we failed. Otherwise, if it is just haphazard, then it is haphazard. It is exactly that.
Which is what it is right now. People, I
Which
mean,
is,
if several individuals from amongst the Muslim community are just taking it upon themselves to just do what they can, but there is no system or planned, like well-laid strategy to get there, and that is very, very absurd. If there is, someone can just tell us. Maybe we are talking out of about something we don't know. I wish to remind our viewers that we are talking about Muslims and electoral politics. Our guest is Sheikh Kasim Kaida, who is streaming live from BBC UK. I wanted to ask you about BBC, but maybe later after this wonderful talk is done. Yeah, I see people were saying kati abantu abatalonda mutugamba kinaye mazima. It brings me to a question I want to ask you, Sheikh Kasim. Do you think, apart from the colonial role, yeah, and maybe the lack of strategy from amongst the Muslims to deliberately get involved in politics. Are there anything is there anything on an ideological, philosophical beliefs and misconceptions that we should address as Muslims regarding politics? Because sometimes the only thing that can restrict someone from joining a particular campaign is what they believe about the campaign itself. So from your experience as one of the people I know who are very, very investigative, do you find that Muslims, maybe around the world or in Uganda, uh, Uganda in particular, have particular thoughts and misconceptions or philosophies they follow that hinder or stand between their getting involved in politics?
Well, with politics, I think a lot of it has to do with funding. The only place that I know, and I could be corrected if there are any listeners or viewers that might have anything that will be different. The only place that I know that has had a clear strategy, a clear political, like political from an Islamic perspective, political strategy, is Egypt with the Muslim Brotherhood. Because they were out there, they set up a system that actually, even when it came to an opportunity for them to stand in politics, they could not be defeated by anyone until the military intervened. The Muslim Brotherhood is the only system. I mean, you look at how they run hospitals. I mean, they said, now we have an issue. Would it be good for a Muslim, a Muslim woman who is going to have a baby, for example, to be treated by a female doctor? And they said, now, yes, that is a big problem that we are facing now. Let us go and educate numbers of female doctors. They had the funds, they pushed in the money, they trained. They end up with 200, 300 Muslim doctors, female doctors, who can actually be, in the birth centers, in the birth clinics, to be able to deliver the Muslim women. They look for gynecologists, and they're saying it's a woman's issues. A woman would best, be able to be there. I don't want my wife to be touched by a man and all of that. You have a woman that is available. Now you find that for us in countries like Uganda, for example, in your poverty levels, even if you're going to say, I don't want my wife to be touched by a man, and the only gynecologist that is available within a range of 150 miles is a man, what options do you have? Does your wife die, or does she get treated by the man who you wouldn't want to be touched? If we come up with a strategy that is clear, it goes down to the leadership. Can Muslims organize themselves and say, now this is our strategy? Within the next 5 years, how long does it take to train a doctor? 5 years. We give ourselves 10 years because that would give us at least a room for 2 people. We say in the next 10 years, inshallah, strategically, can we try and get about 50 doctors? Money is raised, people can raise money. You see how people are now raising money. And I would want really for us, because once it is thought through, you go through diaspora networks. I don't know whether I'm seeing what people are not seeing. I don't know whether our governments are blind. But the amount of money that is coming from diaspora communities, because the first 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you're trying to enhance yourself. You have a house. Once you finish that, then a little bit of money starts hanging around. And this is how you end up sending £5 to someone, $10 to someone, without even thinking through that. If you thought about that money put into a pot strategically, going into a particular cause, you might be surprised as to how much that can do. So the reason I'm talking about deliberate planning for that is, if we sit as an organization, we have accountability, because that's another issue with transparency. Being able to give, you say, I've given money to Imam Kasozi, for example. It is money that has been channeled, it has been receipted. It is going to do a particular thing. You've sent it to Sheikh Bossa. You see the results happening. Immediately the confidence is built. Once you build the confidence, now that's where you start creating a system. We say now we are going to start and trade. We want to get a sheikh who can also be a professional counselor with a certificate, recognized by the Ministry of Health, that they can now not just depend on the collections from the box in the mosque, but they can start getting paid from the Ministry of Health, recognized officially. That's already a platform that you don't need. There are certain things that don't need magicians. You don't need a stick of Nabi Musa to come and start, sort of changing things. There are things that can be done if there is a deliberate effort, but it goes down to the drawing board. As I was giving an example, I said the Muslim Brotherhood is the only Muslim system that I have known that has created systems in place, provided social services in a manner that is actually very equitable, not expecting anything in return except what is good for the community. When it came to an opportunity for governance, that's why you see Muhammad Morsi won the election without any questions until the army came and intervened and he was removed. So the point I'm trying to make is we can talk until the cows come back. But the whole point is it means if we recognize that there is a problem that needs addressing, this is where you go back to the drawing board and you say, these are our problems. We don't have people in the district council. What sort of qualifications are required? Twina abana bamaze Mbale, twina abana bamaze Makerere, twina abana bamaze UCU. Universities are all mushrooming in Uganda. You have 42 universities. Everywhere you look, you'll find a Muslim that is there. Can we go and pick and choose? Can we talk through? Can we carry out seminars to sort of show people what sort of courses, what sort of strategies are marketable that we need, so that someone knows there is no point in going and doing a big course that you think is big. You come out and 3 years you haven't found a job. Wouldn't it help, for example, if according to our needs, we sort of say these are the courses that are marketable? Someone goes to uni, studies, guaranteed that as they are coming out, they will just be taken in. And this is where it all goes down. I hope I'm
Wonderful.
making sense.
Wonderful. You're making a lot of sense. And please give me a chance to engage our participants, our viewers. We have a Boji Mubarak. Is like he's saying that, but still we lack strong Muslim members with credible Islamic knowledge, and this affects a connection of a few, the connection of the few we have to have Muslim leaders. I believe he's talking about the credible Islamic scholarship available, like in our community. Like when you look around, we have scholars, but we have a few of them, and I believe he wants to make a point that it matters. He also says that with enough Islamic knowledge as a member of parliament, it reflects much of Islam in the place than bigger numbers. So he's arguing that it's not about getting Muslims to the parliament and in all these leadership places, but getting a knowledgeable, uh,
Great.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I think he has a good point there. Then there is Aisha. This is so great, mashallah. I had the guts to challenge my tribe mate because I feel I am a great speaker. But I was told by someone that a police that a practicing Muslim shouldn't engage him or herself in politics. You see, now
Time.
the misconceptions are beginning to show here, Sheikh Kasim Kaida. Now, this is a young lady, and I know Aisha, she's part of the Soul Cocktail Academy learning a course, but she believes, or someone made her believe, that participating as a practicing Muslim in politics is not a thing for Muslims. And personally, I think I've heard that in Uganda. I have not had a particular person say it, but I know it is something we are living in Uganda. Some people say going to the parliament is taghut. That is because it is the ayah is inul hukmu illa lillah. I mean, they take out the ayahs before and the ayahs after, and they just kind of cut that particular verse. So we have Muslims at home, and I believe everywhere, because this is the school of Al-Mawdudi, I believe, Al-Hakimiyya Lillah, that historic figure who suggested that it is either Sharia, it is either Lillah or not at all. And that is not inspiring of any kind of coexistence. So Muslims who believe that getting involved in the parliament and setting policies, actually it is shirk, this would be a very big hindrance. I would ask for Sheikh Kaida to comment about that. How can we address that particular mindset? Because trust me,
I
there are
think
many young
you have
ladies
you have
and
already
gentlemen.
you have already addressed it. You have already touched it, and this is what we have been trying to build. The system or the principle of Hakimiyya that you are mentioning about Maudud, his principle was actually looking at an Islamic country or a Muslim country We are living in countries where we are living with non-Muslims. We are living in actually in most countries, in many countries, as the minorities in these particular countries. There is no way you are going to have power. Actually, like even from a Marxist economics, they
Mm.
will tell you the economic base, the economic superstructure gives you the political structure. So, and Muslims, I think we have a very good starting point that while it was a disadvantage for us when we lost out on going on attending schools, education initially, when, like during the colonial period, when many people were going to schools, we embarked on business. You get to a country like Central African Republic, only 30% is Muslim. 70% or about 60% is Christian, and then 10% is animist, sort of the traditionalists. But that 30% Muslim controls 80% of the economy because they are traders.
Mhm.
They trade with Chad, they're trading in Nigeria, in Cameroon. They are the big people. So while they do not have the political knowledge, the school knowledge, the academic knowledge, they have the money knowledge. And they are financing politicians to go out there and do work. But because the politics it demands people of a particular category, of particular qualifications, and they don't have them, they end up funding the non-Muslims. The strategy then would be, if we have identified that this is what we want, that's what I was saying, that the example now would be, let us pump money into a system. Let us create, as long as it is a deliberate policy, we say we need doctors. There's a serious shortage of doctors. Why are doctors, for example, leaving Africa and coming to UK? Because they are coming to UK because they are getting better pay. If a person was to get a decent salary in Uganda, and we work out what would be a decent salary, 5 million, could 5 million be a start off? If someone is receiving 400,000 or 1 million and you pay them 5 million, why would they even think about leaving? 5 million would be adequate to sort of allow them to, and that would be only 1,000 pounds here, like to allow someone to stay.
I
Is it?
like I like when you say only. I mean, like it's nothing.
No, the only is putting it within context, because what
Yeah.
happens is that now you'll end up with a doctor whom you pay only 1 million in Mulago. The doctor goes out and starts his own clinic. He's spending less time in Mulago, where you're paying him the 1 million and he's not attending to the patients. He's trying to go out and run his own personal clinic to be able to substantiate that money, or to augment that little income that is there. If I'm paying
Mhm.
5 million and you put mechanisms of checks and balances to ensure they are in hospital for this amount of time, there's no need why this doctor would go through an installation program to go and start a side business when they have 4 million that they can have on top of the 1 million that was being given. All I'm saying is these are, as long as it is something that someone sits through and strategically, works out. Muslims, for example, in Uganda have had land. There's land, you hear 5 square miles, you hear 3 square miles, all that is sitting. Could we cleverly think about how that land could start generating money that would go into a scholarship fund that can fund such programs? We say we are going to pay for these doctors that we want. We look for the people, identify the clever ones who can do that. Within 5 years, we already have a program. 10 years, you're thinking about beginning on return on investment. How about you train a doctor on agreement that you're going to start working, but for the first 3 to 4 years, of your 5 million that you're supposed to be receiving, you'll be receiving 4 million. 1 million will be going back into the fund that trained you to ensure we can train more people. Who would refuse that?
Who would
It-
refuse
it's,
that?
it's, it's, it's about the planning, and that's where, because now, even if you're going to borrow, you look, there's money in the Islamic Development Bank, for example, that is interest free. You come with a project like that has very good feasibility study carried out. Wallahi, you get the money. But it's about it's the trust, it's the transparency, it's having the technicians, the technical people that can draw up such plans that would be able to pass the test of the qualifications that these banks need to avail the money. So
Right.
that's why I was saying it has to be deliberate. You sit down, you say, this is what we need. How long does it get to achieve? How much would it cost us? Where do we find the money? And then you'll be surprised. And I'm saying the diaspora now has a big role to play. Any government in power in Uganda must actually start looking at elsewhere, actually, because we're using Uganda's, because, well, both of us come from there. But that's a template that can be copied and pasted across other places to sort of see, how do you make a case for this? Many people have gone to the Arab world right now. Remittances are coming in, small or whatever, but there's money trickling in. best use of that would be to find a way that you can actually implement, put it to good use. And we are not doing that.
Yeah, and actually you put it, you clearly stated it in your article, and I encourage everyone who is viewing us live, go to Kasim Kaira. He just posted an article, very wonderful person. I went through it, and he discussed, among the many points he made was that particular point, the role of the diaspora in this particular election and what it has done, and how much of a new wave that has come in that needs to be studied so we can channel that. Sheikh Kasim, I believe someone is disagreeing with us or agreeing with us, but we need to stress his point. Ibrahim Ibu is like, Salaam alaikum. As for me, I think most of our leaders, in brackets, prominent sheikhs, imams, etc., have not done enough in empowering Muslims to getting into politics, to getting involved in politics. I think we need to send out a message there, and we start now. I am a sheikh, and Sheikh Qaida is a sheikh, and we are adding our voices to that call that Muslims go out there, because Muslims stand for justice. We are the ummatan wasata. Wasat means that adil, and we are the people who preach justice, and people should trust with their lives and security. So we don't go out there to get involved in leadership positions to steal money as Muslims. No, we are protectors. So by virtue of being the protectors, we are Muslims. We have to, I think we have a religious obligation to guard people's property, to get involved in making policies that will favor people, to be the ones to hold that flag upright that Muslims stand for this. And I think Muslims have done pretty well. What do you think when you look at the Muslim members in Parliament of Uganda?
In Parliament, yeah, yeah. You got, I mean, all of them, if you see the kind of contribution, well, almost all of them, there are some that haven't really been that very much vocal. But even some silent, you'll be very, very surprised that there was a member of parliament whose name I want to mention. But I was very, very surprised on his particular role that he had when they were debating this whole issue of Islamic finance. This man stood out, he stood on his feet, provided evidence that actually, for me, like, I didn't know him as a person who would be, actually, let me say his name, because probably that's giving credit where it's due, and that's Honorable Hud Katuramu. Honorable Hud
Yeah,
Katuramu was really surprised with kind of contribution and the kind of pressure and push that he put when they were trying, like, to sort of undermine the Islamic banking bill in
yeah,
parliament. He was
yeah,
really one of those that went out of his way and pushed really hard to ensure that that was there. Now you see a minister like Honorable Haruna Kasoro. I hear he has lost the election, but I don't know whether they've already declared the final results. But he has been the minister in charge of microfinance. Islamic money has been there, and no Muslim has gone there to this
yeah.
Islamic
You're talking about the microfinance support, right? There is a lot
micro,
of money there, like people should have known about and should have benefited from.
and
I
they
mean, we,
didn't.
I guess we have examples to show on either side, but Alhamdulillah, for us, we are encouraging everyone who finds themselves credible. And when you go out there, just be a person who stands for everyone, okay? But when it comes to an issue concerning Muslims, of course, because you're Muslim, you have to be concerned even more. But generally Muslims should stand for justice. Sheikh Kasim Kaida, I believe time is actually, I don't know how many minutes left, because I know I have to get back
About
at
10
work.
minutes. You have 7 minutes.
Yeah, we have 7 minutes.
Yes.
I have a friend here who has just come in, Mildin Hassan. Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for hosting Seka Kaida. I hope he becomes a regular fixture here, inshallah. This is one of the young, brilliant minds I know of, Brother Hassan, and he seeks that you should be here. You should be a regular fixture here on Soul
Allah.
Cocktail. Well, you make the promise, inshallah. I won't announce.
That's the promise. It is on, inshallah. Bismillah. This is a
Yes,
regular program that we have committed to with Sheikh Ashraf. And
yeah.
inshallah, we should definitely get it rolling.
Yeah, that is the man speaking. So Hassan, don't ask me again. We shall be here and we shall be doing this program as long as we are alive, inshallah, and we have the resources. We call this program, or we called it Through the Muslim's Eye, because we want to look at everything with a Muslim eye. Not because, okay, Sheikh Qasim called it a bias, but not a bias that blinds you. We can clearly see other perspectives of everything, but we chose to see it through this particular lens because we want to make a particular point. And today we have been discussing Muslims and politics. You have seen how much we are not doing well, how much we have to do well. You have seen the factors that we did not control before that we are at a better position at controlling right now. I'm asking Sheikh Kaira the very last question, and I will ask him to give us a summary of his message to the Muslims out there who would love to get involved in politics. Sheikh Kaira, this is my question. Do you think that the systems, the political systems, like for example, Uganda, provides an opportunity that can clearly be seized by Muslims?
Well, the systems were not designed to include Muslims. That is the first thing. But then now that we are part and parcel of that particular process, our presence, and actually I think that's even very good for us because it means we have to create the space. We have to be in the space to show the relevance, to show the need for that. In a country like Uganda, which is secular, I think it is good that we ended up, we have our public holidays. You'll have Christmas, you'll have Easter, but at the same time you have the two Eids, which are officially, like confirmed. There is no doubt they are public holidays, and I think that in itself, I think should be something good for us, in a lot of ways. So, however, because the systems were not made specifically to have, a Muslim setup, the presence of Muslims now, the Muslims that come in should not only try to be fitting into the system, they should be helping the system to address the Muslim issues, to sort of open up and therefore have that. We have ended up in this new generation, all buildings now that are being constructed, be it Parliament, where the expansion is being carried out at this particular moment. There is need for wheelchair access because you've got disabled people who could not access particular buildings because of that. As part of the building regulation now, you must have access, disabled access. This is because now society realizes there is this particular need. This is a group of people that need a service, but they need to be able to access these places. There will be specific spaces now for Muslims because if that wasn't there, then we are there. If it is a ceremony that is beginning and it has to open with prayers, it can't just be anybody else praying. It has to be involving these people, and that means presence. So you start with that presence and you build upon that. I think to create the need to be a part and parcel. We need to be part of society, not just as Muslims, but as part of the bigger community. Our contributions should be Muslim contributions to the bigger society. So whatever you are doing, it's not being done just for Muslims. You are looking at the bigger community. And I think that is how you appeal even to potential people who might want to revert to Islam. That is the best way to do the calling, by living by example. As a leader, if you get, for example, into a ministry and you are granted a ministry and you are a Muslim, the way you serve the people, regardless of who they are, Muslim or non-Muslim, ours is adl. You are there as ummatan wasata. And
Yeah.
that ummatan wasata is the way you administer justice, the way you administer fairness, the way you are seen to sort of live the example. And I think that is through that light, you become what the Prophet ﷺ says very clearly, Inni bu'ithtu li'utammima makarim
Makarim
al-akhlaq.
al-akhlaq. Wonderful.
So you come into itmamul akhlaq, and through that someone sees you, someone respects you, someone loves you because you have lived, you live the talk. You just don't even just talk the talk, you walk the talk, you live the talk. For us, we take it one step. You just don't walk the talk, you actually live the talk. And that is what would constitute a good Muslim. And therefore, even as a final call, I would say to Muslims out there, politics is part and parcel of us. There is no way you can influence what happens to you. You will not think about it until you need to build a mosque and you have to get planning permission, and that planning permission has to come from a council where you have no Muslim councillor and who doesn't understand. You will not understand the need for this until government allocates some land and they are going to give out plots, and you don't have representation that would have helped a Muslim at least to be part of those people that are getting prime plots that would be good for development. These are things that we actually need, and the only way you can access them is if you are there. There's no way you can be there unless you are elected for. And that is where now your responsibility begins as a Muslim.
Thank you very much. So that was his message. Go and participate in leadership, local government. Go stand for LC1, LC2. Just go and participate in all these positions, and be sure that you serve people, and be sure that you're going to serve the Muslims. One final message from one of our viewers, Boj Mubarak, is inviting you. He says, "It will be my pleasure to meet Sheikh Kaira for a cup of tea. I am cooking something big and it will need his input, inshallah. Thanks, mashallah. I thought you should go with that sort of
That's my cup
invitation."
of tea now with congratulations.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Kasim Kaida. Sheikh Kasim Kaida has been joining us from the UK BBC, and he has to get back to work. Thank you very much for this wonderful time you've shared with us. A brilliant and fascinating 1 hour. People are just joining in. I'm looking at the Facebook numbers rising, but those who have missed, just go back and replay this. It is your
I'll keep watching this just to say I'll keep watching this. So in case there are any points that are raised, I'll be able to respond on your Facebook page, the Soul Cocktail page.
Great. Thank
While
you
I'm
very
on.
much. Yeah, someone was asking where the article was. I mentioned about the article. Just go Facebook and put Kasim Kaira. You will see the article. It is a very detailed article. Everyone has to read it. It was some brilliant analysis. Personally, I liked it. Go ahead and check out his page and see that article. Thank you very much, everyone, for viewing and following. Thank you very much, Sheikh Kasim Kaira. And we shall
Thanks
be
for
here, inshallah, next Friday, 5 p.m. 5:30. Sometimes we change the times, but around that, inshallah. Thank you. May Allah protect everyone and bless you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.